to observe the night sky, beautiful location, and it had a real nice positive vibe about it.
Oh.
We have a hot tub too, so it's pretty great.
Well,
Don't let
that's
that get
an
to head office.
exaggeration. We do have 2 zero gravity chairs, and they,
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, so.
Oh,
I'll be
Reg, I've got some pictures here. I can
okay.
share them.
Yeah, and a short distance away is the pad just outside the Plaskett where we get a better southern view.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're right next to the plastic. Here comes David.
Oh, lovely.
So there's a pad and you can see there's a group of us out there. This must have been in the summer, I think.
This is going to sound very weird, but that is, I've seen many a poorly poured concrete pad, and that is a beautiful concrete pad.
It's actually a reused pad, actually. That's used to be
Really?
where another telescope used to be. We just added on to it.
It's beautiful.
Mhm.
And the etching on there gives you due north, which is really helpful.
Oh, that's really nice for setting up your scopes. Beautiful. What
So
a view.
there you can see the shed.
That's cool.
That has the 11-inch in it.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Oh, awesome. Ah, so fun. Wow.
Yeah, it gives you an idea of what's there.
That's beautiful.
Mhm.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, if COVID would just go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, then we'd be able to use it.
It's so hard to, I mean, like I haven't been in astronomy that long, so I haven't had that experience of kind of all hanging as much of that experience of all hanging out together and all observing together. I've had a few folks from Toronto Center invite me out during COVID. I only got a telescope in June. And so I've gone out with them a couple times, and it's just so nice. I mean, it's just so nice having the support and having, you know, folks who know what they're doing. And it's just fun. You get to hang out and you get to talk, and it's way more fun than I've seen it happen at the Science Center when I worked there, and it was more public outreachy and less like kind of all hanging out together and talking to each other. And I can't imagine what it would have been like before COVID. It would have been so much fun.
But Jenna, you know, at the same time, I really have to applaud you for all the work that National has done with all the sessions online. They've been great.
I'm so glad you're enjoying them. Thank you.
Well
We have
done,
another
well
one.
done.
We do have another one coming up, but we're in the throes of the new database system, and so we've kind of like lagged behind a little bit. But we're going to do Explore the Moon in March, so that we all feel like we're doing stuff again. So it'll be nice.
And the magazine's looking good too, by the way.
Yay! Yeah, I will pass the message along to Alendria. We've been working a lot more closely with Sky News and sort of doing our best to really feel like they're integrated. And as an unofficial office representative who just kind of decided to join in earlier tonight, I will share that I think, as far as I know, and I think Phil's been making this known, Sky News is no longer in a deficit. It wasn't a deficit the other year, and it's making money this year, or it made money in the last fiscal year. So
Wow. Wow.
Yay.
Good.
New issue.
yeah.
It looks good. It looks good.
I'm glad you guys are enjoying it.
And very appropriate article in here. I have a colleague of mine from university who is thinking of buying a telescope. So the beginner scope article, I've recommended him picking up a copy for that purpose alone.
Oh, yay, amazing. Yay, copies of Sky News all around. Mine's sitting just out of
You look great, Laurie.
Thank you. Yep. Have to do my part. Yeah.
And Margie's wearing a Christmas tree hat.
Oh, Christmas tree hat. There you go.
Good stuff.
It is.
Margie, is that homemade?
Oh,
Oh, I see. Do it yourself. Okay, I get it.
No, I actually bought it in San Francisco at Pier 49 about 15 years ago.
oh my gosh. Yeah.
I know it's done well.
It pays to impulse buy, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, everyone. I think maybe we should get started. I'm not sure how many people will come out tonight, but it's as we've had our first snowfall of the year. It's been an interesting day, and hope you don't have too much or too many bothers where you were. I was listening to the ham radio group earlier, and somebody's son was trying to get to a medical appointment, I guess, and required going over the Malahat. So of course that didn't work out, but 4 hours in a car did. So they got to sit around and watch the snowfall. And but anyways, that's what happens. So all the best of the season to everybody. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'd like to welcome Jenna Hinds from the national office, who's joining us tonight. And we'll start there very shortly, just because it's already after 10:30 for her, and don't want to keep her up too late. Just a few announcements and notes there. Just remember that Lori and I have calendars for sale. So if you are interested, please let one of us know and we can arrange to get them to you. They make great gifts. If you're looking for that last minute gift for somebody. Also, we are seeking nominations for Centre Council members and for Centre Award recipients to be presented at the AGM that we're planning for February the 21st. So just reminder of that. So this evening, Doug had contacted me to say that there's been some work capturing some images from our remote telescope, and he invited Jenna along this evening, so maybe we'll start there. So Doug, did you have something you'd like to say and start off?
Well, am I coming through there okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. No, I spent the afternoon and early evening at the Explore Scientific RASC Sky Star Party, and it was great. There was a lot of great stuff, and Chris Gaynor was there with talked about Avro Arrow and many other topics, and lots of images of the conjunction from all over the place. It was really neat. I mean, we got snowed out here, as you said, so couldn't see it here, but it certainly saw lots of good images of it there. So I think we should just let Jenna talk about outreach. I think she'd like to do that and then get off. She tells me that she's not a really good all-night astronomer.
I don't do well after like 9 p.m. So I'm really not a very good astronomer at all.
You're a winter astronomer.
Yes, yeah, I can do okay in the winter. As soon as it hits summer and people are like, let's go observing, I'm like, oh, how about we wait 6 months? So thank you so much for having me at such short notice. And Doug, I really appreciate you reaching out to have me along. We did have a really fun star party earlier tonight with Explore Scientific. We've been working, so the robotic telescope team, a quick history on the project. The scope was bought 2 years ago, and it's been taking a really long time, but we're getting close to the end now to get it ready to be used by the society in general. So we're almost there. We have been doing outreach with it for over a year now, and the outreach that we've been doing has been a blast. We've had really good feedback from it. We started off with sort of grade 12 high school classes, and we also did a CEGEP class, which is like a first year CEGEP class, which I think is grade 12 to first year university sort of age. And the students, we essentially helped the students, we walked the students through how exoplanets have been discovered and seen, and we would teach them about exoplanet transits and how you're looking for a dip in the brightness of a star, not necessarily the actual image of the planet itself. And would invite PhD students from the Institute for Research on Exoplanets to go into the class and talk about current research, all that sort of stuff. And then they would be shown how to choose an exoplanet transit that would be visible from our observatory, then image it and analyze the images to get the data back. Very exciting, mostly because at least when I was in high school, I found that science was not communicated properly to a lot of high school students. Like, it's communicated as, here's a textbook, this is what we know, learn it. Whereas it's really much more of a, okay, well, like, yeah, we know stuff and science got us there. But now what science actually is going out and learning, pushing the boundaries and learning new things. So in high school, for a lot of my labs, it was, and I'm sure many of you remember in high school, it was like, okay, here's what you're supposed to get. Here's the exact answers to this lab that you should be receiving. Why didn't you get them? And in this case, there are no results to compare it to because we're taking exoplanet data transits for the first time. Like they don't have processed images already to compare this to. So it's been really fun. The students, one set of students wrote an article for Sky News that appeared last year in it. So we give them the opportunity to publish, which has been well received. And then I think about half the students that did it in the first year have now gone on to do astronomy in university. 2 of the 8 students have got jobs at Institute for Research of Exoplanets on exoplanets. So it's produced great results. I'm very happy with it, very excited about it. So the outreach program's been really fun. We've adapted it this year for younger grades so that more people can participate and it's a little bit less intense if they so choose, so more students can join. But we've also been doing other outreach projects with the telescope. The photo team's been very active collecting pictures and images. The data has been released if anyone wants to try it out, play with it, see what you can make. You can buy it and it's available on a Google Drive, which is exciting because this is the first time the project has made any money. So that means that I don't get fired. It's nice to have income. So it's very exciting that the project's making money, and it means that we're steps closer to doing things like upgrading the scope and buying more toys and making it more fun for people to use. The science team is up and going for the most part now. We have a lead who's been doing lots of work getting information about the scope. And recently we undertook a big project to image the conjunction. Now, the scope is set up for deep sky stuff, so imaging planets is not its strength. So we took this in a slightly different direction. We have a DSLR attached to the back of the telescope. So we set it up so that every operator throughout the week would follow the exact same set of instructions, point the scope at one spot in the sky and take a picture of Jupiter and Saturn, so that every night that it was clear, we could get a picture as it went along. So I'll share my screen and show you what that looks like. I haven't got tonight's picture in it, please forgive me, because that was only taken about a couple hours ago. So here's this will take a second to load. And then once it loads, you'll be able to see the progression. This was on the first night, which would have been December 3rd, onwards through some clouds and changing conditions to, that was the night before last. So still pretty close the night before last. This has been a blast. This is way more fun than I thought I was going to be a hassle to all of the operators, but Doug has, like, everyone's embraced it and everyone's learning how to do, like, learning more stuff and working together and talking to each other. So it's been so much fun to do. We'll post the final image and the final GIF, the final video tomorrow on our social media if you want to see it. And then this is the scope. The image on the CCD is just a screenshot. It's not the actual image because I don't have a fit file operator here, but that's the image from the CCD. So I've toned down the brightness a ton because even at the shortest exposure, it's pretty overexposed. But you can see Saturn and Jupiter. Again, not terribly well set up for planetary imaging, but they're in the same shot, and that's very exciting. It's been a fun project, and we're looking forward to being able to share it with the rest of the RASC as soon as our new database system comes in. That's the limiting factor right now, is our ability to host forums where folks can discuss targets that they want to image and processing techniques and why we're doing what we're doing with the scope and everything. But that's coming in, fingers crossed, everything crossed, on January 18th. And then once we get that in and we get the forum set up, we're expecting to have the telescope available as like team usership, so that you can join the teams, have input on what targets are being chosen, and learn about how to operate the scope, or sorry, learn how to plan runs and process data, all that sort of stuff, starting about mid-February. And that's it for me. Yay, space.
Hey.
I also haven't actually said this. Doug and Ken are both on the line. Both are operators. Thank you so much for all of the help that you've contributed to getting the scope up and running. It's definitely quite the task and teamwork to have the scope running each night and collecting useful data.
It's been a challenging year, hasn't it, though, with all the new things going on and trying to get people trained up and some issues, and then the fires, and the fire came to within a few meters of the telescope site, and there was ash falling, and you'd look on the cameras and you could actually see the ash coming down and settling on things.
It was
And
terrifying.
that went on for months.
It did. I'll show you just a photo of the telemetry in case you want to take a look at what the site looks like. It's at sierraremote.com. So the fires, our building is, this is our building here, building 9. And the fires came to the edge of the trees on one side of the observatory. So absolutely harrowing. And just like, we're sitting here, thank goodness we just covered our bases because we didn't have insurance on the telescope up until that point. And we got it a few months before, thank goodness. And then to have, to be watching kind of helplessly as you see fire trucks pulling up and the hydro's out and there's no way to access the scope and there's no way to know what's going on. So we lost access to the scope for 3 weeks or so. They do have a backup generator, but you can't fill the generator up if the road is closed. So they weren't allowed to access the site for quite a while. And even if they, with the generator, they then had to get the network back up and everything. And it was quite a while before, as Doug said, the ash stopped falling from the sky as well. What an adventure.
So what kind of scope is it?
It's a 16-inch RCOS f8.9. So functional focal length of 3,550 millimeters, 3,550.
Okay.
I can spout a few more numbers, but I hit my memory limit very soon. I just know that the chip is an SBIG STX 16803, I think. The chip that does the process, or the CCD chip. The Canon's a 60 HUTEC modified camera with a 200 millimeter lens on it. We have adaptive optics, which allows us to take better pictures with nice fine adjustments. Okay, that's all I got. We have 7 filters. We want more.
Okay. So the adaptive is in line with the filter wheel or something, and there's.
I believe and Doug or Ken, if either of you know this more than I do, this is kind of like I only have top level knowledge on this. I believe the adaptive optics is hooked up to the guide chip so that it can make super minor adjustments in very short periods of time to where it's pointing.
Okay.
So that I think.
Yeah, I think it's the simple Altair device, which is pretty basic. It's an amateur based, but it's a pretty good device just for simple use.
It just
Certainly
improves
helps.
Seeing. It helps to improve the seeing. It compensates for.
It allows for really minor changes in really short time periods where if the atmosphere shifts, there's like a prism that can shift to compensate.
It'd be very cool to see some with and without images with the adaptive optics to see.
That's a good point. I don't know how to turn off the adaptive optics, but I can talk to the team and see if we can. That'd be really cool to see if we can do something like that.
Yeah. And who makes the scope? Planewave?
No, RCOS.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's most of the scopes up there are Planewave, but ours is RCOS.
Okay. And the mount as well, or no?
Paramount. It's Paramount.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. This is unfortunately. So I came onto the project about a year. About a year ago. And so we owned the telescope before that. But I kind of took it over from the person who had been both the previous owner and the previous project lead. And because I had the most knowledge in the office about it, which was like next to zero. So I've learned a lot this year. It's been interesting. And I hope that, I know that sometimes there's questions about the past of the telescope. My main goals are to get this to start making the money back and becoming, because it's not that I'm a business person, but to balance the books is important for me. And so as of before COVID, the telescope's budget for the year is in the black. in terms of the ongoing costs. So rent and savings and that sort of stuff. And in terms of, oh no, I can't remember this term, but paying back the money, like the money that we used to spend. Even with that, it was in the black, but we got way held up by both COVID and the new database system. So that budget should be accurate for 2021. And then we'll be moving forward and positively.
So SRO has, like, you pay rent for the space in the little hut or whatever?
Yeah, and they have staff members on site, so they've been very helpful. And we're kind of, I mean, the scope is in desperate need of maintenance. It's been 2 years since it's been maintained because of, we can't travel to the States. So we do need to take it apart completely and clean it up quite a bit and tighten up some of the joints and stuff like that. And probably collimate it. It's hard to tell. We have had lively debates about whether or not it needs to be collimated. And so we'll have to do a little bit of collimation likely, but the data is still like pretty darn crisp, and I can show you some of the photos that people have processed if you're interested. We've had great compliments on the data. We've had people who've purchased it have said that it's really, really nice data to work with. And that I can also commend the photo team on, because they spend a lot of time sorting through data, choosing the best frames to use, removing the ones that are anywhere near subpar, and organizing it. And we have now also, in order to try to make this accessible, we've also offered pre-calibrated data if you purchase the data set. So if you don't know how to calibrate the data, or if you don't know how to use calibration frames, we've done it for you. So you can just stack them and do whatever else you want to do with them.
So Jenna,
hello.
How is there somebody up at the site like every night?
Yes. Yeah.
And is it just one person that's doing all of those places around there?
There are 3 staff members, but they rotate through. We're very close with all of them because we have a lot of problems, and I get lonely. So no, we talk on the phone quite a bit. So this is the 3 of them that traded around, and I know that they've been there for quite some time, so they're quite skilled.
Okay. But Doug, you're doing this remote. You're doing some remote work then on the telescope.
Yeah, I do it from my den here in Victoria.
Okay.
And or if I'm in Kelowna, I do it from there.
Doug is the lead of the operations team, so he's in charge of everybody who's turning the scope on and off and making sure that it's not smashing into itself.
Hasn't done that yet. Well, I think we'd like to do some more educational work for people, and we'd like to get the teams closer together, and actually Zoom is an ideal thing for that. So this last few weeks when we've been working on the conjunction, we would start a Zoom meeting, and we could have as many people as we wanted, and one person would share the screen and see what's going on, and there'd be some discussion and so on. It was actually a very good process, very supportive. Yeah.
It's really, the fun part is the community, right? The fun part is learning all this stuff and feeling satisfied that you know what you're doing. It's so, I don't know, like I just haven't gotten the chance to play with that many telescopes before, and to be able to go through the process of learning what's involved to make this work, and why we shoot things a certain way, and why we need to have this guide star in the chip and all that sort of stuff. I want a degree. I feel like we should start issuing certificates or something like that. I've learned so much, and I don't have any paper to show it, but maybe someday we will. Maybe that's what one of the directions will go. It's the key, at least for me, is yeah, as Doug said, the learning process.
It's amazing how many things can go wrong with the telescope, isn't it?
Oh my goodness, yes.
You feel a little bit blind, because although there's lots of control and there's lots of safeguards, you're not there. And we had a couple of issues over the past year where the computer would shut down, and if the computer's down, you can't get, you've got nothing. You're absolutely blind. Yeah. It's very
it feels like being a doctor trying to figure out these problems where you have like a third of the information that you need. And it's really interesting. And again, like it's we've all learned a ton about what's going on, and having this stronger communication among the team members that are here right now, who are like the ones that were put in place to get the project up and running. Everyone's learned a ton, and it's really fun working together, and it's great experience. And it's just so much more accessible than trying to have that scope for yourself. Like there aren't a lot of people that I know who can drop that kind of money on a scope individually. And most of them are already here in the RASC. But there are a good number of people here who don't have that who can't afford something like that, who aren't interested in something like that because it's a big commitment, or like plenty of students, plenty of young people who are really interested in astronomy but don't know how to get started, and don't have the kind of income that would allow them to buy these sorts of things. So when we do open up the team memberships, in case I haven't mentioned this already, or you haven't heard me in previous talks, our sort of financial point is we're looking at year-long year-long userships. So where you can join the teams and discuss what's going to be taken and learn how to use the software for $300 for adults and $150 for students. All of the students are at half price because I used to be the youth outreach coordinator and I have an agenda. So, so there, I mean, it's for the amount of time, and that includes the data that you receive, that you image in that year as you're on the team. For the data, the time, and the experience on the telescope, it's a pretty decent price. You're looking at the photo team. We have the photo team planned out to have 2 to 3 nights a week. We're not sure how many people are going to get involved. We'll see. It'll depend on how much the science team wants. But for that, we're looking at 52 times 2, 104 hours for the year of data, which is, I mean, pretty decent. And you can get a lot of targets in that time, and they're really nice target. Like it's pretty high quality stuff. So I'm confident that $300, I know it sounds like a lot. It's like 3 times our RASC membership. But I'm confident that you will get your money's worth.
And I have a question for you, please.
Yeah.
If you look at the screen, you'll notice that those of us who do have hair, most of it's gray. So we're very interested in learning how to get more young people attracted to the hobby. Can you give us any feedback about that?
I can. I actually have a person that I could probably connect you with in Victoria as well. He was messaging me. I think he's at UVic on an astronomy club. Anyway, we follow each other on Instagram. So one of the Montreal Center did this very well. There's an astronomy club at John Abbott College, which is a cégep school in Montreal. They were working on an event for the solar eclipse, and they reached out to RASC. And when they did that, they realized that there was a lot to be gained from that relationship. And so they worked with RASC so that RASC had a home at their school. RASC Montreal has their headquarters in the John Abbott College library for free, in exchange for all of the students in that club being functional members of RASC Montreal. So they come to the meetings, they will give talks occasionally, they'll present work that they're doing, they'll ask RASC members for help on their projects. And I've been to one of their meetings, and it's phenomenal. Like everyone kind of melds together, and there are younger people who are really interested in the archives. And so they talk there, they have a librarian, and they work with other RASC members to bring their library in. So having that kind of relationship, we are working to find ways to formalize that. And I know I'm saying the new database system a lot, but the new database system will help with that, because right now we can't make new membership types with our current database system. With the new database system, we may be able to do something like a club membership, where for X amount, let's say $100 to $200 for the same price as a membership, they get 1 copy of the Observer's Handbook. They get no voting rights in the meeting, or 1 person's voting rights in the meeting, but their members can come to events, something like that. Maybe a higher price, we don't know, but having some sort of like olive branch that we can reach out to clubs with and say, here, we can provide you with benefit if you come and join us and kind of bring youth and energy into the club. It's been very successful in Montreal. It does take. Sorry?
What attracts them to the club? Are they interested in visual observing and taking pictures, drinking coffee? What?
A lot of them, for the most part, are actually really interested just in like in outreach and very specific areas of the hobby. Like one member is super into space law. And so I think they're just really excited about talking to nerds, which, you know, fair, we're a club full of them, like you can find your spot. I think the nice thing about reaching a club is that you're not going alone. So I was invited to Toronto Centre meetings before I was an employee here, and I never went because I didn't know anybody. Every time that I saw them, they were all like older folks, didn't feel like I related, felt like if I showed up, I'd be that like imposter that didn't know what they were doing. If you have your little cohort of club members and you're all going together, it feels so much more comfortable and reasonable. That being said, then both sides need to make an effort to connect. Like both sides need to try to talk to each other instead of just kind of sitting in their bubbles, because that's an issue too. And that bridge was gapped with Montreal Centre when Montreal Centre started inviting the John Abbott College members to be part of their executive. And when the John Abbott College students had school projects that they needed help on. So they go to RASC members and help. And then since then, RASC Montreal, although this president just stepped down, but they had the youngest president that I know of, except maybe Prince George Center, possibly, can't remember. But their president was 21 years old, and they had 2 other execs under the age of 23. So they had a really young skewing exec without feeling like young people were taking over, as it were.
Jenna, quick question for you. Jim here. Somebody I knew at one point, Charles Ennis, I believe, was working with RASC, the national office, as I believe he was a diversity coordinator. Do you know of anything that he's doing at all? Because that sounded really interesting to me.
Yeah, so he actually has that. He has a whole committee, and they have a good number of people who are representative of groups that we are interested in attracting to the hobby and making feel comfortable in the hobby. They recently released a gender and sexual diversity video. It's about 18 minutes long, of gender and sexual diversity in astronomy and other space sciences. They're currently, we've had a few like social media errors that the national office has made. And so they help us sort of keep those in check and make sure that we're saying the right stuff and spreading the right information. So they have a list of various events to tweet about and post about as they come up. So they keep that updated, and they do have, there were a few other projects that they're working on, but I'm not super certain. They also work quite closely with the Next Gen RASC committee, which is younger folks. It's a committee, it used to be the youth committee. Now it's like its own proper actual committee headed by a volunteer. And they may be working on speaker series as well.
Okay, is there a connection, a link perhaps to their activities on the Nationals website?
You can also ask Bill Weir, he's our rep. So you can ask him on our email list.
Okay, I'll check in that way.
Or through social media. He's on both, Twitter especially.
And Bill has responded for us on several occasions, and so thank you. I don't think Bill's on this call, but
yep.
I am.
And
I'm also on that committee.
Oh, there you are.
Mushroom.
So that's
come up under your mushroom, Bill.
If you are on the national email list, you will see my posts around times of ethnic and religious times that have to do with things that have to do with celestial events, which are most of them. It's only the Western religions that don't deal with celestial events.
Bill, I so appreciate what you put on. Like I've learned so much from some of the things that you've put on that I didn't know about at all. So really like them. Thank you.
So how do we get to see your stuff, Bill?
Are you on the national email list?
I don't think
That's where I post. That was one of the jobs that I took on, was to.
Do you mean the Rascals website, Bill?
Yeah, the Rascals email list. Yeah.
Yeah, I get all your emails, but I couldn't remember which list they were coming from. But yeah, they're excellent, and yeah, Rascals is, it's
How do you?
I mean, the
enjoy
21st is important to a whole bunch of cultures.
Yeah.
It's, this is like one of the days.
The big one, yeah.
This year I focused on the ancient Romans and Saturnalia
Ooh.
because of the conjunction.
Mhm.
How
You
do
just
you
reminded me that I forgot to retweet a tweet from Roland as well.
Yes.
I have to go do that now. The other thing to note as well is that we have started to try to involve or include some bios, and I think it's the bulletin, the monthly bulletin that goes out once a month, of different members that we feel represent demographics that we would like to involve more of. So for example, Marina, I think Marina Miller was one of them. She's a youth member from Vancouver. And so we've profiled a few people here and there. If you know anybody who you think would like to be profiled, please talk to the Inclusivity and Diversity Committee, because they're the ones who are mostly organizing it, and we just send out the newsletters. But I wanted to add as well, this is happening a bit with the Next Gen committee, where Next Gen is sort of building an identity that's separate from RASC, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because it's nice for young people to have a space where they feel comfortable. But what we're trying to do is do less of that, feel less like there's, a separate part. So when it comes to inclusivity and diversity, Gary, to your point about putting it on the website, realistically, we should find a way. And we'll address that. And I'll bring it up with Phil when we're back from the holidays. But we want it to feel like it's a RASC thing. We don't want to feel like it's a RASC Inclusivity and Diversity Committee thing. We want it to be RASC in general. So for example, their tweets come through on our national account. They don't have their own separate Twitter account because we want to feel like a unified sort of organization.
The Next Gen people are on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's where you'll find them.
They're
and
great.
It's Next Gen RASC. Follow them. You'll see their
Yes.
picture that they put up yesterday that showed what as the conjunction was yesterday, where the moons of Jupiter stretch right underneath Saturn. It's a very cool little photo. It's not high tech. It's not super resolved. It's cool. That's the thing it is.
Oh, my ring light. There we go.
Yeah.
So there's I'm really excited about some of the people who are engaging now, and it's nice to have a group of young people who feel comfortable sharing their voices in the society.
Jenna, it's John McDonald here. I have a question, a little bit different subject, but it's related. One of the things that has happened during the COVID time is there's been a lot more connection between clubs across the country and so on. What's the thought that's going on about RASC post-COVID? How will it be different from what it used to be? How will it be the same? Any thoughts about that?
So I'll start with the caveat that I'm not the executive director.
Right.
So I'll give you my thoughts, but bear in mind that I can barely look past the next 2 weeks. So that's why I'm not the executive director. So
We'll still have COVID in 2 weeks.
that's the thing, right? Is like I'm focused on how to keep us going. And so there's been a lot of value in having a virtual world. There are people, when Ottawa Center was the first center to start doing virtual meetings. They jumped on it like immediately, and they had their center members showing up from Iqaluit, and it was just members who'd chosen the closest center, and now suddenly they could start going to meetings. So there were some really good things that came out of it, and some folks who wouldn't necessarily, who lived further away or who were older and couldn't get out of the house, they can now join meetings, which is great. Obviously, it's heartbreaking to lose things like observing in groups and doing outreach. Those I don't think we could ever stop our members from doing, and it's great. Like I think that will come back as naturally as possible as we are able to meet again. I certainly think that in terms of the virtual side, so the pandemic has provided national office the opportunity to feel useful, kind of in a way. I don't want to say that we're not useful, but or that we weren't useful before this, but it feels it does feel like we're more connected with everyone across the country, and we're seeing people more. And like, I'm coming here, and it's just so nice to be able to visit. Like, we never would have done this before COVID. And so this part is really nice. And to be able to, you know, provide trainings and provide Zoom to centers to use to host these meetings and stuff like that has been really nice. It's been nice to feel like that is value added in a way. And we don't expect to step back from that role. Basically what I'm saying is I don't think COVID's going away anytime soon. And even if it does, having this option is really nice. So I do not want to give it up. And so I vote that we keep it.
Certainly feels, to an old guy like me, it feels like the connection that we on the West Coast have with National has definitely improved. I mean, that's a positive thing out of a difficult year. So
I'm glad.
Thanks for that.
I'm glad. I'm glad that you feel, and I do know, and I had comments from members as well in our newsletters that we tend to, or for a long time at least, we've been mostly promoting events in the middle of the country, and that I've also had plenty of comments from various members that all of our national branded outreach, like the stuff that the webinars that like I've been doing, is all during work hours, and I know that that's an issue. Unfortunately, my work-life balance has taken a nosedive anyway, so maybe, who knows, maybe we will start hosting events at this time of night. But I'm limited by that factor. So having like, I know Sunshine Coast, for example, and I think that's Charles' center, has been adding their events to the calendar, and we've been promoting them for them. And so we have made more of an effort to bring in some West Coast events so that people don't feel like they're left out when we have our events at 3:30 in Eastern Standard Time while everyone's like eating lunch at work out on the West Coast. So if there's any way that we can make you feel more included, if we can promote your events, if you ever want us to promote your events, please, please, please let me know, and I'm so happy to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Jenna, it's Reg here. I've got a couple of questions for you. Just getting back to the robotic telescope, I'm a little bit confused. It always seems like it was coming next month or something like that. Do you actually, can you now join groups and this sort of thing? Is that operational yet?
So part of this was that we had last year right before COVID hit, we were given the timeline that the database would be in by March, and then we were given the timeline that it'd be in by June, and then we were given the timeline that it'd be in by November, and now we're at January. That being said, and that's why it keeps pushing back. It's not, that part is not so much, like the robotic telescope project was nearly ready to go in February of 2020. And we had built a website, or rather the people before me had built a website specifically for the robotic telescope project where people could join forums and talk to each other. But when we brought in this new database system, it has forums built in. And no matter what, even with the current website that we had, we would need to be querying our database system to get the information about who'd signed up to be a member and what permissions they should receive in those forums. We didn't want to build that system into a database system that was going to function 2 months. Turns out to be a year. And so we put it off. And now I can say with confidence, because I've seen the back end and we've seen how well the progress is going with the database system, that we are close. I can't guarantee that we're going to hit January 18th. That was the date that we projected. There may be, it's been vague, but there may be something stopping us and like making it go a little bit longer. But we're not expecting beyond, I would say, the end of January at this point. The back end is already set up. We've run a session with center executives to see what it looks like. Starting in January, I'll be running sessions with members in general about how to do things like set up their accounts, change their address, that sort of stuff. So we're getting to that point where it really is almost here. Once it goes, then we can set up forums for people. So the forums are key to the being part of the teams. If you can't talk to each other, it's not really a team environment. So that's mostly what we're waiting on right now. And then once we get that set up, then we're good to go.
So it sounds like a spring rollout then for that. I'm just curious, Doug mentioned that there is a team of you working on it right now. How many people are actively involved with the telescope now?
I think it's about 13. It started off bigger before I was on the project, and several people dropped off because progress was slow. So fair point. It's taking a while to get going. And they were like, we were told that this was going to be a thing, and it wasn't. Since taking over the project, we have gained maybe 2 people, 2 or 3, and we've lost 2 maybe. So we're at about 13 right now. I believe there's like, I've added a couple of young kids who are not necessarily doing a lot, but I want them, I've like, they're helping plan the background stuff with the photo team. So they're 15 and 16 respectively. And if we count them as full members, then there's 14 or 15 people. Most of them are on the photo team. The science team has 3 members. I can't remember exactly how many the photo team has. I'm gonna say 5 or 6. And then the operations team, which will stay relatively consistent, and you won't necessarily, I don't want to say you won't be able to join, but it's not something that you would pay to join. It's something where we would hand select volunteers to do it because it's a really big commitment. It's 1 night a week forever. So it's one of those things that it would seem very odd to have someone pay you to work 1 night a week forever. And it's also something that you can't just do casually. I tried to do that, and it's really easy to forget what you need to do on the scope. And so we have, I think my plan anyway is to have 8 operators. So 7 operators who have a night per week. And then 1 who is a backup who has been trained and then at a moment's notice can jump in with a fresh, like a refresh, and go if we need them.
Okay, I've got a question then about, let's say you set up an exposure that's going to run for quite a long time. You're going to have a member of the machine to turn it off at the end of the night. Is that right, or is it automatically done?
It's not automatic. So we have standards. The photo team has developed like a standard set for what to do for different targets, so that when we open up the teams, it makes it easier to just go, okay, these are the exposures that we need to take. We don't take any longer than 15-minute exposures, but we set up the runs to run all night, and it'll bounce around from target to target. We have operators to go on, turn the camera on, cool it down, connect the mount, focus it, and then hit go on whatever run's going that night. So if it's the photo team's run, they go. If it's the science team's run, they go. Off goes the run. In the morning, the operators come back on. Some operators stay up all night, depends on who they are. In the morning, the operators come back on. The runs are programmed to park the scope after they're done. So the operator comes back on, turns off the camera, lets it warm up, disconnects it, make sure everything's parked, turns off the fans, all that, and then tucks it in for the day. So we did consider, I just had a very embarrassing moment in that live stream earlier where I talked about ACP. I don't know if you all know ACP. ACP is a software program that allows you to just go, do this, and then the telescope does it. In that presentation, and I hold true to this, we don't want to use ACP because I like the experience of figuring out how to operate it. That's part of the value. You get to learn way more. You get to feel like it's like driving a manual car versus an automatic, or like driving an automatic versus taking the bus. Like you feel it. You can get to, like, you're part of it, right? Anyway, the person who made ACP was on the call, so that was really awkward for me. He messaged me privately afterwards and was like, hey, I actually wrote the program, but I understand where you're coming from. I was like, oh no, this is terrible. Oh God.
I've got one other question. You mentioned next gen, and it seems to me like it's a really good on-ramp to engage people from a university level into RASC possibly. That seems to be what you've done in Montreal. Is there some plan on how, I guess it's still being formed right now, but is there some plan that we can approach, say, the Astrophotography Club at UVic or other places like that, and engage people in that manner? Or if you've given thought to that?
Yes, so we do have a plan to sort of set up a package of information and tools that we can go to an astrophotography club and have some sort of onboarding mechanism, because the modeled after Montreal system. It's taken a bit of a back burner because we have so many other bigger projects on, and it's on the radar of both the EPO committee and the Next Gen committee, who are both working on it together in conjunction with the office. One of the elements that we're probably going to include, the outreach program that I was mentioning with the telescope, where you go through the whole, like, choose the exoplanet that you want to transit, image it, calibrate the images, and then take the data, is really extensive for a class. And so we've developed this program that's more aimed at classes, and that program is going to probably be aimed at students who are in the IB program and have extended essays, or in the AP program and have end of year projects, or are in CEGEP and have small group work to do. So like smaller groups sort of that have the time to dedicate it to it. And one of the, she's both on the outreach team and on the photo team. Her name's Raina. I met her when she was 12 at the Science Center in Toronto. And we talked when I worked there, and we talked about Enceladus and the possibility of life on Enceladus for 2 hours. And then she came back and came to one of my talks at the Toronto Center 3 years later. So she is starting an astronomy club in her school. And she said, can I do the telescope project with my club? And I said, sure. So that's going to happen in January. And once we have her club go through it, we'll have a bit of, like, we'll be able to hand them a package of that outreach project even, and just say, hey, you know, are you looking for something to do and ways to get involved? Here's a project for your class. Come and check out RASC and participate in this project and sort of be part of the community.
Good for you.
Great.
Good for you.
One last question. It was mentioned that there's some sort of a national email list that you can get on, and I've never heard about that except occasionally mentioned by some members. How are we allowed to join it, or is that for executive people?
No, it's called Rascals. I'm not on it anymore, but I know some people are. I don't remember how to get there, so it's in a members area. No. It's going to be somewhere in like the member areas, membership benefits maybe. There's a spot where, yeah, there's an email list spot. Yep, there we go. So email groups and discussion lists. I can send this link in the chat. You sign in. Happy. There we go. And you can sign up for Rascals or Astro Sketchers, Astro Imaging, EPO, LPA, any specific list there. EPO doesn't get used a whole lot anymore, but so I wouldn't maybe bother with that one. But Rascals is the one that you're probably thinking of. Here's the link. I'm going to send it in the Zoom chat. But you do have to be signed in your national account to get there. There you go.
Rascals was the one I was talking about, and it was, you know, I signed up for it so long ago, I couldn't remember how I did it.
Yeah, this is there.
Now I know there's been, Jenna, there's been talk about changing all that stuff around once we get the new system going, or is that another thing that we just can't deal with right now?
So when we get the new system, right now our mail lists, and this is a heads up as well for everybody else, that we've had some security issues with the Astro Sketchers mail list. Our current mail lists are stored on a hard drive in Nova Scotia. It is a very old-fashioned method of storing list serves, and it's not particularly secure. So when we get the new database system has a mailing list capacity built in. It's also a discussion, it doubles as a discussion group, so you can go on forums and like see old topics and sort that way if that's how your mental space works, or you can sign up for email digests where you get the email notifications for each topic. So we will be migrating all of our lists, that's Rascals, and our center mailing lists, like the president's list and the like EPO committees list will go over there. So we're migrating those all over. Staff is doing that, not you guys. So it should be relatively seamless for you. But once we get the new database system in, there may be a day or two where they don't work. But once we get the new database system in, we will run some training sessions on how to use those forums and how to participate. And that, when I say we, that'll be me. So you'll see my face again.
Very good.
Great. Well, thank you so much. That was a late addition to the agenda tonight, and a lot of great information has come out of that. So thank you for joining us. And hopefully we haven't kept you up too late.
Well, she's young. 11:30 is young. No
problem. Lori, no.
Again, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you to Lori, because I'm probably the newest member of the Astronomy Club here, in Victoria. I've only had a telescope for a couple of months, figuring out how to use it, but not being able to take advantage of the star parties because of COVID. So your online Explore the Universe video series has been really helpful. You know, how to set up stellarium on my computer. I got the Observer book, and I'm now diligently filling out my little Explore the Universe workbook so I can work towards a certificate. But it was yeah. So I really appreciate it. It was my first introduction to this group, and I must admit I've eavesdropped in a couple sessions, but been a little overwhelmed by the sophistication, technology, and the vast universe of expertise and knowledge in the group. But it is an incremental learning. I'm a forester by training, and so really enjoying looking up past the trees to see what's above us. So thank you for all of you, and Jenna in particular, with your outreach and your videos.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're enjoying them. And thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure everyone else does as well. And welcome to the club and to the society. And not owning a telescope for long does not mean that you're not an astronomer, because I have that identity crisis every day. So I'm so excited for you.
Well, thanks again. Does anybody have any final questions for Jenna? Okay.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you all for all of your support, help, and excitement. And there's absolutely no way that I could do this without all of you. Thank you so much for having me. Email is in the chat if ever you want to reach out or chat or anything like that. I'm always happy to talk. It was lovely to meet everybody who I haven't already met. It was lovely to see the people who I have met again. And we will see you all at some other virtual meeting
sometime.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jenna.
Thank you, Jenna. Glad you could make
Thanks.
it.
Thank you.
Bye, Jen.
So anyways, the next thing we had, David had been proposing, because we have this, we're paying for a Zoom account that we're using right now, the center's paying for. And although that doesn't cost a lot of money, its primary use has been Astro Cafe. So it could be used at other times by other groups of members. So one of the things we've been talking about, and David would lead now, is there interest in forming some, I guess, smaller study type groups or special interest groups? So maybe I'll turn it over to David.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I think we've been thinking about this for a long time, but given the ease with which we can create Zoom sessions, I think this is an appropriate time in history for us to do this. I don't know if the club has really had much of a history of having SIGs, but I have been involved in other SIGs in my lifetime, and I find them really, really valuable. It's also possible for us to make connections that we can't do under regular circumstances. And it also provides a way for people to sort of jump into a topic without really knowing a lot. And I don't really expect these SIGs to be really totally areas of expertise. I hope that they would be areas of exploration as well. So I just wanted to get an idea of what the temperature is like here in Victoria in terms of getting together in that manner. Now, COVID's going to be with us for a while. I don't see it going away in the next couple of weeks or couple of months. So I think we should take advantage of what we have right now. And I agree with all the comments that Jenna made about this not disappearing afterwards. I think one of the big pluses out of COVID has been the fact that we've been able to communicate in this way. So I think we should maybe take advantage of doing some special interests areas as well. Marjorie, I think you were expressing an interest of having a beginners group. So I think that's a great idea. I've wanted to do something with electronically assisted astronomy as well, to give people other, methods of observing, which is kind of a hybrid between photography and visual observing. So I'd like to sort of get that off the ground as well. So anyways, Chris, you have a quick poll that we can implement right now.
Well,
and
we'll
maybe,
hope so.
Oh, you hope so? You're still working on it?
No, it should work. We'll see.
Okay. So yeah, if people would just sort of respond, you don't have to think about it too carefully. This is just sort of to measure the temperature of the center.
Okay, yeah. So David's prepared 5 questions. So I'll see if I can get this to work. So you should see a question appear on your screen with, in this case, 5 choices. And if you could make a vote if you can see it.
Yeah, if you have any questions about the question, certainly speak up.
I'm largely in favor. I have a group with the fishing club I belong to that has been a lifesaver for a lot of us during this COVID thing. I do a Saturday morning fly tying group that's part of the fishing club. And we get about 14 to 16 guys every Saturday morning. And it's been both a social and a skill building exercise. It's been very useful.
Yeah, it's surprising what you can actually learn, and even from other people's questions as well. Like, you might not even think about asking a question, and you just learn something.
Okay, I think maybe we'll end that one now because I noticed it's kind of come down to trickle. Last call. Any last vote if you haven't already? Okay. And
if I could just add as a suggestion, if one of the topics would be the absolute beginner's guide to stacking software, because I think I've tried about 3 different packages and run into a brick wall on all of them. And you can ask one question when you meet somebody and go home and say, well, that doesn't work at all. So it'd be awfully nice to have someone who could actually walk you through a process.
Yeah, so Jim, it's very, very likely that the astrophoto group will form.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's a topic that they could cover.
okay, so I think as you can see here are the results of this first question. So some not sure, but most people, everybody else who answered said yes, they'd be interested. So
yeah, that's a good count.
Okay, so let's see if I can do this again. Oh, I guess I have to do it. It may, hold on a second. Did it put the same one up, didn't it?
It did.
That's, yeah, here we are. There we are. Okay, here's question 2.
So this is really about wondering whether people want to be a little bit more passive about joining these groups or whether they want it to be a very active group. So this is just an idea of what your temperament is.
Good idea to do this, David.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a better feel for it. I don't want to do something, or I don't think the club should do something if it's not desired. So
We'll just give it another second or two. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So it looks
good.
like a lot of people would like it to be the group. So
that's great, actually. That makes for a much nicer SIG.
Yeah, did anybody want to see that again, or was I too quick on that? Okay, let's move. Hold on a second. I'm still learning how to use this, so this is good. Okay, and here's the next question.
Okay, that's probably a self-evident question.
Where is there it depends on what we're talking about?
Certainly.
That's the maybe.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
Well, obviously you would only try to lead a group that you are interested in and you have a few skills to contribute.
Yes.
Probably.
Okay, well, just another moment or two. Okay, and here are the results for that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like we need to do some work in terms of what the commitments are in doing hosting. Maybe that's what this is reflecting.
Chris, I don't have any results on my screen.
You're not seeing that? Who else? Is anybody else not seeing results?
I see them.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. So I don't know.
You just tell me what it says.
Okay, it was 5 said yes, 12 maybe, 9 no. Okay, here's the next question.
So this is more about time commitment. How often do you think one would meet?
For example, I mean, we've kept Astronomy Cafe going now when there traditionally had been a 3-month break, for example. You know, has that been useful for people to connect weekly, or, you know, with that? So if you joined a special interest group, what would you like to see? Just give it a moment or two. Okay, and here are the results of that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that kind of makes sense to me. I'm sure a lot of people. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are involved in other groups on Zoom as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you can kind of get a bit zoomed out if you're not careful.
Mm-hmm. But you know, it's interesting that people want some level of consistency as well. So that's an interesting comment.
I suspect some of the groups would be dependent on activity. For example, I know that Alistair in Edmonton runs a real-time scope doctor clinic. That's the kind of thing that you'd have to do on an on-demand basis, because not everybody wants something every week.
Yeah.
So there may be some subjects that would be on an on-demand basis regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I wouldn't see them being cast in stone. It's just an idea of, you know, what are people thinking if they'd like these things.
I mean, the polling is really meant to sort of guide us in a certain direction so we don't take off in a totally wrong direction. But it doesn't mean that it isn't malleable. It's totally malleable.
And here's our last question. Meeting duration.
So this is more about people's tolerance for being online.
Some of us spend most of our day online staring at screens.
That's true.
Talking to
That's
people.
true.
So
yeah.
I probably
yeah, I'm probably inadvertently too much online. But
I think we've just about got everybody's responses, but just give it a moment or two. Okay, and there we are. So,
oh, interesting.
Fairly evenly split, slightly more on the shorter end, but some people interested in longer. You know, it's interesting because I mean we're now into our second hour tonight, for example, and you know, I don't know how people feel about. You know, I think I was thinking originally as a host that we would try and target being around an hour. So I start feeling a bit nervous as the host once 8:30 rolls around and we're still talking. So it's interesting to see that supports that maybe that isn't a problem.
Yeah, I you know, sometimes I think it has a lot to do with how engaging the program is. If there's, I mean, we've had a really active discussion tonight, and for good reason. I think as long as you've got something that's really topical that people are interested in, you could go for a couple of hours.
Well, it was interesting to have somebody from National again, for example, because there's, you know, I think I would echo, you know, what John was saying is, you know, we do feel a bit cut off, I think. We're so far away from the center of Canada, and it's, I think, you know, when I went to the GA in Halifax, I flew from Victoria to Toronto, and then from Toronto to Halifax. And I was kind of thinking, oh, well, we're halfway. Well, no, we're not actually. By the time we got to Toronto, we were 2/3 of the way to Halifax. So Toronto and Halifax are a heck of a lot closer together than we are to Toronto. And it's kind of, I think that I really got the feeling for that in going out to that GA. That, you know,
David, in looking at those poll results, it almost looks like if people want to be in control, are thinking about that there be consensus of what's happening within the group, that each group that would form, you know, some of them might be a short group and some of them might be a longer group and some of them might meet monthly and then another group might be really terribly keen and want to meet weekly. I mean,
it could even be very
just do their own thing.
Yeah, it could be very task specific too. You know, like if we have an eclipse coming up or some special event coming up, which requires a certain technical skill, you might want to launch one that's just interim, just a very short one, just to get ready for an eclipse or just to get ready for some kind of event that's requires a special skill.
I could see, for example, the astrophotography example and dealing with the various software that could meet maybe in much smaller groups for maybe longer or more frequently, because you want to build up and get through your, your task. And if you leave that a month at a time, you're going to forgotten what you've done last time. So you probably would want to meet more regularly. And, especially if somebody's leading a kind of tutorial type approach. So yeah, I could see, whereas other topics could be more infrequent.
Yeah, I think there's great opportunity here, but I think one needs to be really cognizant of the fact that we're all at different levels of skill. So you probably want to have something for everybody. Like for instance, astrophotography can be very daunting, and I think a lot of people don't touch it because they think the barrier of entry in terms of technical knowledge is too steep. But then you would never get started if that was the case. So I think we have to be very cognizant of that.
So, well, thank you, David, for putting together those questions and soliciting an input. One of the things I think David and I were talking earlier tonight is then we'd need to solicit some potential topics. And I guess we would need some people to lead those topics. So we'll give that some more consideration and look at how we might solicit that input going forward.
Dave, can we hear a bit more about the telescope doctor? Is it just Alistair putting his shingle out saying, I can help you? Or
yeah, there's Alistair and a couple of guys that will do that, mostly Alistair. And if they have a new member or a new member of the public even who is asking questions about how do I set my telescope up, or why I have this problem with my telescope, they get in touch with him. And then he will periodically do a clinic. And he does those in person at the Science Center in Edmonton. But you could do some of that stuff on a virtual basis. So I think that's something that might be worthwhile thinking about doing on an as requested exercise. If during COVID, at least, you might not get a chance to go out in the field and work somebody through with how to set up your telescope, but you might be able to do some of that online.
Yeah, I think you certainly can, as long as you're prepared.
Yep.
I've actually just added a secondary camera to my Zoom rig, so actually I can very quickly pop back and forth between different inputs.
What is Alistair's skill set? Is he just an experienced hobbyist? Or?
Yeah, he's more than experienced hobbyist. Yeah,
I was going to say, he's a jack of all trades, I would say.
Yeah, Alistair's quite the character. But yeah, and it's been well received from what I can in tracking the amount of back and forth that I see on the RASC list in Edmonton. He gets maybe 1 or 2 takers a month, and mostly people who have a new instrument that are having trouble with it or don't know how to set it up. But also people who have been observing for a while who have an issue with an instrument and get a hold of them. So, and that was another thought with some of these group sessions. It might be interesting in doing something along the meet another center night, where we arrange a joint meeting with maybe in Kelowna or maybe in Saskatchewan. Just to put faces to faces that you hear about across the country.
That could be interesting, especially if we're in a reasonably close time zone.
Yeah, it might be quite interesting to try some of that sort of thing.
Yeah, we might have to have RASC West and RASC East.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to be chatting with St. John's or Halifax. Just too many hours between us.
Yeah. I think Toronto is it Ottawa and Montreal, I think, did some joint meetings, haven't they? And had a joint.
They do things together, yes.
Yeah.
And I think I think when we have just decided that we're going to do Astro Cafe and we keep it fairly local, like the work we do at Astro Cafe is a fairly local,
right.
local look. And so I think we have been a bit reticent to say, hi, anybody from St. John, if you want to come and, join us in our meeting, it may be that, that they may think that we're, doing things a little bit too much locally. I don't know. But we certainly could open up to Prince George, and Kelowna,
Yeah.
Vancouver.
I actually have posed this to, the people who lead this group, Astronomy Cafe, and even to council members. And I've experienced dead air as a response. I think the reason for that is, like, if you look at the participants today, we're at 32 to 35. It's about that much every week. We really can't afford to publicize this too much more. Otherwise, we'd push local members out because our limit is 50. So if we were to put it on, I don't even put it on Facebook, and I've asked several times if I should, and I've got pretty well no as the answer, because otherwise it would no longer be Astronomy Cafe Victoria, it would be something else. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm interpreting what people are thinking in their own minds as to the response to me publicizing it more.
Yeah, I was thinking more of a separate session.
Sorry.
I was thinking more of a separate session where you would arrange something with another club for one specific occasion to meet and greet kind of thing.
Okay.
And if you did that, you could use the RASC, the big one that can take 1,000
Yes.
people. So I wouldn't want it to be that, oh, we can't do it because we can only have 50 people on. We certainly can use their Zoom account anytime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Getting back to the telescope doctor thing, I was away for a second, sorry.
Sorry.
Got a puppy here. So in the club I belong to down south, we advertise the telescope doctor to the general public. And you would not believe how many people show up with their Christmas telescope and they're looking through it backwards. So it would be a very, very good idea to do that here too. And we get a tremendous response, I suspect.
Yeah.
It also doesn't need to be every session. I mean,
oh no, it could be just periodic. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe every quarter or something. Yeah, but totally open one.
Well, if a group wanted to provide this, telescope service thing, we could ask people to email and say they'd like this, and then it could be scheduled and done.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to Gary.
Runs his. That's how Alistair runs his clinics. He does it by email for the most part, and he usually sends out an invite on the RASC list about once a month.
Well, Gary was asking me about how to attract younger people. And there is going to be a number of people that are receiving telescopes, in a year following the comet, but also now with the conjunction. And it might be a good opportunity to promote the club, the society, by offering a telescope introductory session up to the public. And you have a date, or just go to the website. If you advertise in some media, go to the website so you can get the Zoom link. And I think that would probably attract quite a bit of attention.
Yep. And probably if we could get out in social media that they usually see, as opposed to coming to our site, how many of them are actually going to come to our site? Like zero. So somebody that's savvy with social media, is that you, Brian?
No, not necessarily. I'm more of a Twitter reader than a poster. But yeah. It's it does just. How many people? This is all new to me. How many people are actually in the club? You said there's 30, 35 on these calls, but how many members are in Victoria?
258.
So that's a pretty. Would you say that's a good ratio of participants relative to members? I think there's probably a lot of. Reading the Sky News, or the president's message that there was 500 additional members joined or more this year, and so I think there'd be besides the national video series, I think there may be some opportunity to start a beginner's welcome to Victoria session just some basics about even where to observe if you don't have a good spot outside your front door. Like I've gone to Cattle Point a couple times. I haven't taken up the offer to go up the hill when the gates are open, but just some basic information about where to observe and
well, often
Victoria.
Brian, often when we posted things to our website, we try to localize the information, and certainly that's what I try to do, because our audience is mainly here with the club here. So if I tell you something, it's really about where I could get to or where you could get to.
But yeah, that's really good. I appreciate the emails that get locally and nationally, and so that's really good, because it is, when you're new to it, it is quite overwhelming. Just the number of stars and deep sky objects to observe.
So Brian, technology. What telescope have you got?
I picked up a Dobson 8-inch, and I got it from Bruce Lane. I ordered it in early July, didn't arrive until late August because of the backlog. But for 2 years prior, I was doing what was recommended in the publication. Get some sky charts, the apps, and just use the binoculars and get familiar before you launch right into a telescope and kind of blindly look up. Yeah, so that's right. But I was up at Mount. There was that little, I think it was Reg. Someone had posted. Maybe that was it last week that you said, hey, maybe there's a window on Sunday night. Or I went up to Mount Tomah. We could see the moon through the clouds. But there was another new RASC member, a guy named Victor. We did recognize each other in the dark, but he was also up there trying to see if he could get a glimpse of the conjunction. And there was another person that was just randomly up there thinking they might be able to see something. So, it was an opportunity to at least engage with some people. Might try again tomorrow or Wednesday night up there, because it's a good some good elevation.
Reg, maybe you can confirm this for us, but I've been looking at some of the forecasting charts, and it's supposed to be good for 2 more days.
Yeah, we got a little bit of a break, but it's not a clean bill of health to Christmas. As soon as people get their new scopes under the tree, I think it's going to be pretty crappy.
Don't open your presents.
Yeah. But
Brian, if you're up at Ptolemy tomorrow night, I'm planning on going up there with my 10-inch Dob to have a look, 10-inch equatorial to have a look at the conjunction.
Okay, good. You just set it right up on the top of the rock. Yeah.
Look for a red Subaru Outback.
Okay. Yeah, under the light. Yeah, it looks like a good spot. Too bad we couldn't.
It's great. Otherwise, if you're not looking at stuff low to the horizon, Cattle Point's not bad at all.
Yeah.
I've just headed out to Dallas Road. I've got my little spot there, and it's actually quite good because there's not very much separation between the horizon line. So you're going to be able to, I figure, you can probably observe it between 5:15 and almost 6:30. I don't think you'll get to 6:30 though, because you're going to hit some horizon line feature, but at least between 5:15 and 5:45.
Yeah.
Where's your Dallas Road spot?
I'm where that little beacon is. You've probably seen it in my pictures. There's a beacon that sort of shines green, and that's where I've been. So I actually try to snug up to where the rail is. I put one tripod leg shorter, so I don't really block the pathway for people walking behind me.
Where is that?
It's just before Ogden Point. You can see Ogden Point from where I am.
Okay.
It's a broachy light.
Pardon me?
Another place you can go is drive up Churchill Drive in Mount Douglas Park. I was up there last night. There was a beautiful clear spot, completely open, no clouds. Unfortunately, it was in the wrong place, and a nice view of, I think it was Alpha CT of all things that I didn't want to look at. It was cloudy down. where the conjunction should have been, but it's a very high, of course. Mount Picols is the highest in Saanich. So depending on where you are, Brian, and other people, the road was open. I walked up, I parked at the bottom, but the road was up and a few people drove up and down.
Yeah, I was wondering about Mount Doug as well, but I wasn't sure if they'd be locking the gate with us up the top of the hill or not.
I'm not sure when they lock that gate.
They
You don't want to get
haven't
locked
been.
up there.
No, well, I'm sure they let you out for the comment. It was open. I think and there are obviously people, some of the people who went up and down, there weren't a lot, gave me the impression of being regular. So it's unclear, but I don't think you have any risk of, especially because of this early event for the conjunction, of being locked up there. And they surely must check if the gate is open.
Yeah.
So some good ideas.
Thank you.
David, did you want to show that chart briefly?
Yeah, I
tomorrow?
can actually show you. I'll just find the share here.
Of course, we've missed the closest approach of the two planets, which was today, but it's actually still going to be quite good tomorrow.
Yeah, so just from context, I think most of you have probably seen the Zenfolio image from the 17th. So this is actually what it looked like to me on Dallas Road. I just wanted to show you a couple of views. The larger rectangle is basically with a wide angle lens. So that's what I did actually see. The round circle is a typical pair of binoculars. So you can see on the 17th, it was separated somewhat. They'll be much closer than this tomorrow night. And then if you're using a telephoto, that's the inner field of view. So let's just move this up to the 22nd. So this is the 22nd, and they're much closer. Now, I wouldn't go by this visually because these are symbols. So obviously they're not going to be that close. I suspect that they'll be aesthetically close. They won't be on top of each other for sure.
And I think when you measured it earlier, it worked out to what, about 10 arc minutes, I think. So about a third.
Instead of a 1/10 of a degree, it's a 1/6 of a degree.
Yeah.
It's still pretty darn close.
Yeah.
I think visually it'll look kind of the same, actually. I'm hoping so anyways.
Yeah. So in my Dobby with about 100 power, it's going to fill the eyepiece. But you'll be able to
I really encourage you to jump into Stellarium and then build a field of view for yourself, and you'll see what you're likely to see.
Those
But
oculars in Stellarium are amazing. I've got them set up for all my different reducers and various lenses.
Yeah,
that it's great.
It's always useful to do a little bit of pre-planning. The other thing that I like is the fact that there may be other objects you can use to sort of guide you to where to go. This is kind of like wide field star hopping. Like for instance, I knew where it was situated compared to the moon, and the moon's going to be more apparent. If you're going to see anything at all, you'll see the moon. And in fact, the other night I saw the moon and Mars. It was quite visible, but of course I couldn't see into the area where the planets were. But yeah, and the other trick, if you're photographing it anyways, just take frames, because you're going to be able to see the planets sooner on your sensor than you will with your eye. So that's another trick that you can use. Great, thanks.
Yeah. So the good news is all going well. There should be a couple of opportunities to still see them very close together. So, Reg, did you have any concluding comments for this evening?
I just briefly, it's just a commercial here. Could I share the screen for a sec?
You should be able to, yes.
Thank you. I'm just going to go to, this was the Astro Cafe for today, and it was all about the Great Conjunction earlier on. When I posted this early in the afternoon, There was a likelihood that a frontal system that was moving through the area might go through faster. So this was the predicted cloud shield at 5 p.m. Today in the southern end of Vancouver Islands there. Can you all see this?
Yeah.
And then at 8 p.m., the skies apparently look like they're going to clear. So this forecast was based on data that was collected at 4 a.m. in the morning. So it's a 12 to 14 hour, 12 to 16 hour forecast at that time. And this is the actual image of the cloud shield moving through the area. And really, if you compare the two with those predicted things, it was very close to predicting the trailing edge of this upper cloud that moved through the area. So I was just hoping that maybe they would be wrong and it was moving faster than they predicted. But in this case, it was quite accurate. And so we were shrouded in cloud at kind of the 5:30 mark when things were at its best.
Yeah, it's
And,
clearing up now. See the moon outside the window.
So, so at any rate, that is my thing, and I'm a really big proponent of the Environment Canada cloud forecast, as when we have an animation of the pictures of the cloud areas that are go through, and I think that's far better to look at that than just looking at a 1 pixel version of the same data that is supplied by the Clear Sky application. So I encourage people, go to the website and look at the real stuff and look at the real, and look at the predictions and compare the locations of the clouds that are taken from the actual satellite pictures to their predicted locations from the model, and then you'll be able to adjust and give you a level of confidence what that cloud amount forecast is really like. And sometimes it works really good. Sometimes it underestimates the amount of low cloud that forms in the area, and we're in trouble. So it's quite a handy thing to have. So.
Yeah.
Can you post us that link, Reg?
That link is on the website for tonight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
For that. So if you just read in the little blurb there, I've got the Environment Canada Astronomy Cloud Forecast.
Yeah, yeah, Reg, I went to that site and it lists regional model satellite simulation for Eastern and Western Canada in 00 UTC and 12 UTC. How do we, and then with T plus 03 to, so how do we navigate that to find the images that you showed us?
First of all, you use Western Canada.
Yeah.
Second of all, you would click on the 12 Zulu or 12Z. That is 4 a.m. in the morning. That's when the model was initialized, and that's your best model to use for that day.
12.
And that data becomes available around 10 a.m. in the morning.
So T plus 12 is what we use for Victoria? Or is it this? Are these T's? Are these times?
Those are.
I think he's trying to translate time from UTC to our time, I suspect.
So it's 8 hours different?
Yes, we're 8 hours. So use the T plus 08?
So Reg said use the 12 Zulu.
Oh, the 12 Zulu. Okay.
Yeah, which starts at 4 a.m. So then you then have to count your hours from there. So 4 in the afternoon is 12 plus 12.
Oh, so what you would say is, let's say the time on the image there that they showed you, say it was 20 Zulu, 20 Z. You subtract 8 hours from that, and that would give you the local time.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at it, one of that image there, and okay, I'll try, and then just keep going down in terms of the number. Well,
what I would do is click on, you would click on the animation, and it'll bring in all 45 images, and then you just scroll back and forth and see it progress. Don't just select on an individual one. And
I think
if you
we
got
need
any
a, I think we need a weather SIG.
Yeah.
We can let Reg lead that one. Once he's no longer president, he can lead that one.
Okay, but if you've got any questions, Brian, or anyone else, just email me and I'd be happy to help out.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Brian, there's something that I just put a link in the messages there, and if you hang on a second here, I'll just share the page to show you what I've got. This is a map that I made up some time ago, just for my own use, and it's on Google Google Maps, and it's just got a couple of the various different sites that I've gone to for observing, as well as a couple of the sites that are just of general interest here. So if you wanted to have a look at that, even if you have, if anybody has anything they'd like to add to it, let me know and I can put them on. And if anybody wants to go looking for where some particular location is, I'd be more than happy for that.
That's a great idea, Jim.
Not quite.
I've probably just got my own personal list of directional sites. Like often these events occur at sunrise, sunset, and different variants of that. So I've got a southerly view, I've got an easterly view, and a westerly view. So I'm sure you probably have your own personal list as well.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Jim. That's useful.
Can I just ask again? So if it's a nice night tomorrow, there may be some people. There's somebody up at Mount Ptolemy. Is that right?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be up there.
Okay, and there might be somebody on Dallas Road.
Yeah, I'll be out at Dallas Road. I think Randy, you might join me, right?
I'd love to.
Yeah.
And you could always view it from Cattle Point.
Cattle Point is still okay. Yeah. What about Island View?
No.
No.
I doubt it. Doesn't
No.
Island View point the wrong direction?
It's the wrong direction.
You need to be south. You need to be southwest.
Southwest.
Yeah.
Okay, so that won't work. Okay. All
Yeah,
right. I just have got a couple of people who were asking about where people might be and like if they wanted to go and have a look. So I will just let them know to mask completely up.
Yeah, and Dallas Road is good because you can be quite spread out, and I feel quite safe there. But I would advise wearing a mask because people do pass by quite closely.
Yeah. Okay.
It's your name, sir. The screen says it's Julia, but I assume that's not your
wife's
name.
Yeah. I'm on my wife's computer tonight. It's a little quicker for these larger meetings.
Yeah. So your name again? Sorry.
Dave Robinson.
Dave. Nice to meet you, Dave. Okay.
And just go. If you have to go somewhere for any event, even if the weather looks like it won't cooperate, if you want to see that thing, go to the space, because sometimes there's these little windows in the clouds that allow you to see things. You know, I've seen a lot of things when it didn't look like it was going to cooperate, but I had to go there. And I've headed out in there. I sketched Mars once on closest approach in the rain because Mars was in a clear patch in the sky. And I was set up under an awning, keeping the rain off my paper. But I saw it beautifully. You know, there's a lot of things if you have to go, you just go and go well ahead of time so you're ready. Because this is going to be a short window.
Yeah.
You don't want to be you don't want to be showing up at the time of darkness and now setting up.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Bill. And the possibilities of looking at something when you don't think you even have a chance are a little bit higher than you would expect, because often it occurs in a very specific area. So it doesn't have to be perfectly clear everywhere.
And it's zero if you don't go.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's just a nice excuse to get out for a walk too.
Yeah.
It's important, if you haven't looked at Jupiter and Saturn very much, it's important to realize how bright they are and that you can see them quite early when it's not even close to dark. So, and it's falling so quickly into the horizon that getting out there even probably at 4 o'clock, you can probably
That's when I'm going, 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm going to try and be there about 4-ish because you might be able to see it about 4. Certainly by 4:30, you should be able to see them.
Yeah, certainly bring your binoculars. That helps. And as I say, a trick I always use, I always have my camera with me. So the camera helps as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because remember, sunset is quite early. And so you
It's
do want
4:20,
set up.
4:20, 4:30.
Yeah. Before is probably a good time.
And if you have one of those apps on your iPhone, you can usually use that to orient you as to where they might be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, one other
I'm
thing.
blessed with a good patio.
Yeah, one other thing. If you have an accurate compass, you
Yeah.
can go by the azimuth setting as well.
Yeah.
Just remember the declination.
Yes, of course.
Great. Well, thank you. That was a great evening, I think.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody enjoyed it. We're going to take a 2-week break and return on January the 11th. So hope everybody will be back and have a safe holiday season. And I don't know if anybody has any final questions or comments. And we'll look at Dave's tree.
Just Reg here, I just wanted to say that this is the last session of the year for Astro Cafe. And through this whole thing, we've had Chris has been a host, and a fair amount of work involved in navigating these sessions and muting people and scheduling and all that. And I think a big hearty round of applause to Chris for running this thing. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And we would like to have somebody as a backup. So it's quite a rewarding thing to do. So please put your name forward if you would like to also be an Astro Cafe host. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great festive season. We'll see you next year.
Take care, everyone, and happy hunting tomorrow night.
Yes.
Safe Christmas and
Thank
New
you,
Year's,
everyone.
everybody.
Okay, good night.